Hello, welcome back to today a video edition where I'm going to be telling you different car make model, and I will tell you their specific problem which the car owners are often hiding and will never tell you. And it's going to shock you to some greater huge amount of money that these car owners are spending. Now, before we go into this very video here, I want to say some facts which most of you guys in the Western world, America, Europe, you name it, cannot actually phantom correctly. You know the reason why? Because most of you guys actually buys this car brand new from the car lot. However, in Africa, due to the Western policies and dirty politics, they've made it in such a way that most African countries, 90% of the car that is going there is a used car. And most of them, like 80% of them, are coming from the salvage yard. Now, with that said, lots of these cars are going to be having a lot of mileage on it, starting from 130 mile, 100 mile. And something interesting about cars that have this very mileage, a lot of things will start falling apart really quickly. Now this is where you get to distinguish which car is better, which car brand is better, what part fails quickly. This is 508, right? I'm going to tell you one of the common problems which most people who have it here are facing. And over here we got a Mercedes E350. I'm also going to tell you the most common problem which most people who are buying these cars are facing. And over there we got a Honda CR-V, and I'm going to tell you the common problem in that very car there. Then over here we got a Toyota. I'm going to tell you what most car owners who owns these cars are not telling you on the internet space. Now we got a VW over there, Passat, Jetta, and I'm going to tell you the most common problem which the owners are hiding, but these guys cannot hide it from us, the mechanic. And I'm also going to tell you about Peugeot cars and tell you most of the common problem which is the driving force behind the guys who owns these cars, and the common problem which you should be expecting suppose you decide you want to buy that. Now let's go for that. Now over there we got a Nissan, and I'm also going to tell you the common problem which most Nissan owners are facing on a huge scale, and I'm going to tell you. Now I'm going to start with the top less repaired, and also the last one here. I'm going to tell you about Mini Cooper. This is a Mini Cooper parking here. I'm going to tell you the most challenging problem which most car owners who own this very car are facing on a daily basis. Now, which one should I start with? This is a Chinese brand. I don't even know the name, but I'm not going to be putting this into the context. So let's start with Nissan. One of the common challenging problems which most people who are in Africa, in Nigeria, are facing with Nissan is electrical issues, anti-theft issues. You can decide in some Nissan you just pull off the battery for the old model like Nissan Sentra. If you left the key in the ignition or without even the key ignition and it's on, and you remove the battery terminal, well, you're going to run into a problem where the ECU will have a problem and the transmission system will have a problem, and it might actually prompt you to replace those and get to program it back. Now, what is the next common question which you're going to be finding with most Nissan vehicle is chains of smoke. Their engine burns oil a lot. Most oftentimes that's for newer older models, but you're not going to be seeing that issues with something like Rogue. Rogue is actually very rugged and very reliable. That's all you're going to be getting for most Nissan owners in Nigeria, in most Africa. That's the problem which you're going to be experiencing with Nissan. How about the fuel consumption of Nissan? It is actually very top notch. Now the next one which you're going to be going over is Peugeot. Peugeot has a very interesting fact which a lot of you guys will be interested to know. And before we go into Peugeot, let's highlight a little bit of the Nissan. There is a common problem in most cars which a lot of you guys will be curious to know. How does the shaft, how often do you replace the shaft, the drive shaft of the Nissan? How often do you replace the stabilizer linkage? How often do you replace the ball joint? How often did you have to, replace the compressor or service the AC compressor? That's a very good question. The reality there is you often don't replace this very part very much often. This car right now have about 100,000 miles. They have just replaced the shaft once and about to do one again, and it's only the driver's side. And about 130k mile, we're about to replace one of the rear or possibly two rear hub. Okay, when we come over to Peugeot, most customers, most drivers who drive Peugeot, especially 206, 306, 406, are driving it. That is the most reliable part of Peugeot. What are their common problem is electrical. You don't do mistake in 406 or 407 and forget your key in the ignition and then remove the battery terminal. the car will switch into anti-theft mode quickly and may lose memory, which might prompt you to go and recode the key. Well, and in some case, if you're that lucky that you have to go and reprogram another key, you might also, if you're not an unlucky person, you might need to replace the ECM. Initially, Peugeot was, for that very reason, was seen as a red flag, and the ECU was more expensive than the car itself back in 2012, 2011. So a lot of people were running away from it. And the second issues which make a lot of people, drivers are facing on Peugeot most often times, is the drive belt. The drive belt of a Peugeot is a no-go area because there are a lot of fake ones that are around here. No, not the drive belt, but the drive belt and the timing belt, so to say. Now, this timing belt, when it snaps, it's not for the 206, it's not for 307, it's for most Peugeots with a EW10 engine or EW4, E4 or EW12. So if the timing belt snaps, it's going to bend a lot of valves, so you are just near to replacing the top cylinder head. However, the very good thing about Peugeot is the fuel economy, the ruggedness, and what about the regular things which you often have to replace, like in other cars, like drive shaft, ball joints, and all those, you know, the stabilizer linkage, sway bars. You know, the funny side as this most interesting is that you don't get to replace the drive shaft or all these the chassis stabilizers components, all right? So you don't get to replace that parts very often, and that is why most people actually like it, because of high fuel economy, and you don't get to replace parts anytime soon. So because of that, the parts are more cheaper. Now let's go to Volkswagen. This is Passat B6 2006 model. 2007 is going to be looking like this. What is the common problem why most Nigerians run away from this very car here? One is for the 2.0T. The turbo is actually, that T there is a problem. Most Nigerians are scared of turbo because when the turbo is often the first thing that will start giving you issues and start consuming too much oil, not the engine. And that is number one. Then the number two is that most technicians who are in Africa and in Nigeria do not have a very high certified technicians who can fix their car, fix their Volkswagen properly. Now let me say something here. For this car, you're going to be needing more technicians to drive Peugeot. The same goes with Volkswagen. You will need more of mechanic to drive Toyota. What do I mean by that? Most of the problem you're going to be experiencing with Toyota, which I'm going to talk about later, is mechanical problem. There are a host of them, but it have less of electrical issues. Now let's go back to Volkswagen. Now for Volkswagen, what parts do people often replace more quicker than any other? Like I said, the turbo, that is number one. Then the number two, which most people often get to replace, is the AC compressor. You know the reason why they replace it? Because most, like 95% of car mechanic around in, let's say, Nigeria cannot competently deal with variable displacement compressor. And we're going to talk about this in more detail in another brand. However, the next part is dealing with electrical issues, but in my own analysis is actually electronics, because most of them are running away from scanning the car before they get to fix it, and because of that, they are trying to bypass scanning, and cutting wire, try and error is often what made a lot of people to run away from it and call it electrical nightmare. But I've owned about 3 versions of these cars. I own this, I own the Jetta, I own the VW4, and I've actually started my life with Mach 3, so I know very much about that. So for this car, you don't replace a lot of parts. For Jetta, you don't replace a lot of parts, and they have little to no engine issues, no overheating. When you overheat, you don't have any problem. The ball joints, the drive shaft, no. Now let's go to Toyota. I'm supposed to have left Toyota for the last one because there is a whole lot of problems. So let's go to Honda. Now we got a Honda around here. This is Honda CR-V, probably 2004 or 2003 model. Now, what is the most common thing which most customers who own this vehicle are going to be complaining about? Well, most of them actually complain about the ball joints. When the ball joint fails and it start giving you issues, start giving you symptoms, most drivers in Nigeria will never replace it until you pull out and spoil this fender right here. However, what are the most common problems also you've been looking out for to see in Hyundai compared to some other Asian model? Well, it is near to just that ball joint and nothing further. I'm not saying this, I don't even own Honda, so I don't say I'm compromising things in order to be able to suit my audience. Now, what about the shocks? What about the tie rods? What about the bearing hubs and all that? These parts hardly fails. What about the engine components such as the AC compressors, alternator, power steerings? Well, these parts don't fail that quite much, but you should be bearing in mind power steering, but it doesn't really feel that more rapid. Like within 2 years, you might not even need to replace it, not replace any shocks, not replace any aside the ball joints and brake pad. That's pretty much all. How about the electrical parts? Well, people are not really sweating hard about the electrical parts, so you don't need to worry about electrical electronics about the Honda, because it literally have near to zero. Now we go over to Mercedes. Here is Mercedes 4MATIC E350. Nigerians love this car so much. A lot of you guys in the Western world are going to say that this is a car for old men, but what? In Nigeria here, it is actually a luxury car with a lot of respect for it. What are the common problems you should be thinking about in Mercedes? Well, you're going to be needing a tech to fix Mercedes. Not that the electrical electronics often fail sooner. No. As a matter of fact, one of the most reliable cars you can talk about in Africa is Mercedes. The parts are often built rugged. They last quite a long time. You know, you often rarely see it in mechanic. If you come in mechanic, you hardly see them replacing the rear hub, the CV joints, the shaft. You hardly even hear the shaft makes a noise. The drive shaft make a noise. So that is Mercedes for you. And when it comes to electronics, it really develop problem. That is why a lot of people have a lot of respect for it, you know, compared to that Toyota there. Now, let's move into the last, second to the last one, which is going to be Mini Cooper, which is over there. Mini Cooper is going to be second to the last one, and the last one we're going to be using to wrap up our topic of today is Toyota. Now, for Mini Cooper, what is the major problem which most mechanics are facing, most owners are facing in Nigeria? For Mini Cooper, oh my goodness, it's a nightmare. One is the engine, and one is the engine, especially if it comes with the one with the turbo. Oh my God, a lot of people are going to be running away from it. They call it electrical nightmare. Aside having turbo issues, you will need a tech to fix this car, because the engine, the electronics aspects, it always has to be a ping pong thing. You know, you see this one right here, they just drove it down here just to perform a couple of service, and it will never start again. There are places I'm going to take you right now. You see it, whole lot of it dumped right there. This car is going to be really rare to find it on the Nigerian road, because there are no really competent tech and mechanic who can be able to deal with the problem matters arising about this very car. So it's a complete red flag for Africa. And when it comes to stability parts, such as the ABS, such as the tires, such as the wheel hub and all that, well, you're not going to be having this kind of problem. But when it comes to electrical electronics, you're going to be playing a lot of ping pong in it, and you're going to be needing a high top tech guys to drive this car. That is why Nigerians are running away from it, right? Which is different. Like in Mercedes, you're going to be seeing a lot of them with huge mileage, and maybe once in a while, which is a normal thing, the ignition coil fails. Now let's come back home. When I mean home, a lot of people see Toyota as the home. And before I start to talk about Toyota here, let's take a look at what is going on within this very garage, which I am here like every single day. Now you see that guy right there. That's the chief engineer here. That's the chief mechanic here, who can deal with a lot of problem concerning engine. Oh my gosh, deal with a lot of engines. And guess what? What is wrong with this one here is engine problem. They're about to replace the gasket. And what about this one here? It has engine problem. And these are the guys who are dealing with this very problem right now. They are rebuilding this engine, putting some ring crankshafts have been cut to 020. Now, we got a lot of other engine down here, but mostly Toyota. Now, let's get into detail about Toyota. What are the most common problems that Toyota owners are going to be hiding? For a lot of you guys who are trying to buy a Toyota, one is the hub often fails quickly. The drive shaft often fails quickly. The tie rods, the ball joints. So anything concerning the stability parts is always a problem, including the inner CV joint, the tri-inner CV joint, and the outer shaft always make that noise. Shocks, the same thing. So what am I trying to say in essence? When it comes to electrical, yeah, no issues. It has a lot of fuel economy, but you're gonna spend all that in the shocks, the hub, the drive shafts, and some of that engine component. We're gonna go into engine component later. Now, for Toyota here, a lot of people who boast about having Toyota, I will confidently tell you that before a Peugeot man replaced a shaft, a single shaft or a strut on his car, the Toyota man has replaced at least up to 5 of his. Quote me any day, anytime. So their shocks or struts are prone to failing very quickly. A lot of you guys who have a very smooth road in your places are gonna come to kick on me on this very content here, but well, when you come to Africa and Nigeria, where there is a whole lot of renegade politicians who are weaponizing poverty, and not investing or building infrastructure, industrial machines that is going to build things that's going to create a lot of jobs. They leave the road and a lot of other infrastructure to get decayed, and that is where we have a problem. So we got this Toyota popular engine for Corolla is done. We're going to be needing a replacement. This one also need a replacement. However, they have to purchase another engine block to be able to get it back. What about this one? Just a little overheating and it's gone. Now, when we talk about the engine component, the variable displacement compressor for Toyota is another thing which most Nigerian car owners are seeing as a nightmare. Like 90% of Toyota owners have their compressor reverted to Peugeot, using Peugeot, shifting from variable displacement compressor to fixed sanding compressor. And the reason that is because they can't competently fit the variable displacement compressor. How about electronics? Like I said, no issues about electronics. What are other problems which Toyota owners are going to be getting? The ECMs often fail sooner. The ECM, though it doesn't have an electronics problem, but the ECM fails sooner. The engine, you should be expecting the engine to start burning oil from 100,000 miles, and before then you might have replaced the shocks absorber or the struts, the tie rod, the drive shaft, the stabilizer linkage, the hub. So like every now and then, which is not the same with Volkswagen, not the same with this one here. So when you are seeing Toyota, you should always have it at the back of your mind that you'll be replacing a lot of parts concerning the legs. They call it legs here, or the drive train components like the camber, the drive shaft, anything related that touches the ground that helps in stabilizing the car often fail very quickly. So we have a reliable car that the company doesn't just know how to build a part that's going to last better. Or you can say that with Lexus, because I've seen Lexus, and Lexus parts seem to last a little bit more longer than that of Toyota. So what about the electronic? Okay, I forgot to say that. I forgot to say this about Volkswagen. If you have a Volkswagen Jetta, one of the notorious problems with Volkswagen Jetta is the electrical assisted power steering. It fails very quickly, right? So, however, when it comes to Toyota, it also fails, but not as alarming rate as that of Volkswagen. I hope you guys are getting this right. So guys, I hope you find this very helpful. I will be seeing you guys on the comment section and tell me what you think. I know a lot of you guys, if you started this very video without skipping a part, I said something very, very important. I said a lot of you guys who are in Europe might not be able to stand a chance to tell what car is reliable and what car is not, because you often buy it brand new from the lot. So you sold it off as soon as the warranty has expired, and there are people who get to deal with the mess, and those are Africans. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.